Well, it's great to be with you all. Thank you for joining us again. So good to see you and to be with you. We come to our afternoon service. The afternoon service is called Mincha. Mincha is how we say it anglicized. Mincha means an offering. It means a gift. So may this be our offering, our gift to the divine during this holiest day. Part of our offering of forgiveness and tshuva and return and renewal. May this afternoon's offering be blessed and be filled with goodness and insight and inspiration for us all. So let's turn to page 327. Page 327 in our Machzor. And you will see a lovely reading that I think is a great source of inspiration for us as we begin our service. Our ancestor Jacob, of course, had a dream, a famous dream. A ladder set on the ground with his top reaching the sky, and angels of God were ascending and descending the ladder. Our sages taught, the Holy One said, Jacob, you must climb as well. But Jacob was afraid, and he did not climb up. We want to climb higher, but we're tired, and there's so much to do, and sometimes we don't know how to rise. God of becoming, whose name means, I will be what I will be. I will be what I will be. You are the unfinished one, ever unfolding, evolving with your creation. Made in your image, we too are fluid, ever becoming who we will be. Keep us alive to possibilities. Show us a path to grow in mind, heart, and spirit. Help us find the strength to ascend. Well, in that spirit, we come to a tremendously inspirational book of the Bible. You know it well. It's the famous book of Jonah, the Haftarah portion that is chosen for the holiest day of the year. Let's turn to page. Well, before we turn the page, I just want to share with you, and then we're going to turn the page. I want to share with you the book of Jonah. It's really quite remarkable. It is only 48 verses in total. A verse is a sentence. 48 sentences make up this story, make up this book of Jonah. 4 short chapters. We were in a Bible that was all English. It's less than 3 pages in a book. But how profound is this story of Jonah? So profound that our ancient sages said this is the Haftarah to read for Yom Kippur afternoon. So now let us jump to page 343. Page 343 in our prayer booklet, not prayer booklet, our Machzor. It's more than a booklet. It's 400 pages, 500 pages, 600 pages. So I don't know if you've had a chance to look at the commentary of this Machzor, and really, in addition to the readings and the music we've been doing, the commentary is really so insightful and inspiring. These blue-colored pages are study texts. It's usually talking about the theme of the holiday, the theme of a Torah portion, of a Haftarah portion. And at the bottom of page 343, I think they've really encapsulated. We're not going to read all of this commentary of the book of Jonah, but it's all quite good. But I just want us to focus on the bottom section together of these major themes of the book of Jonah as we get ready to chant as Cantor chants it in Hebrew, and as we have English readers read the entire book, keeping in mind these themes of the book of Jonah. I'm at the second line of the last paragraph. The book eloquently conveys themes appropriate to the holiest day of the year. universalism, the intrinsic worth of all human beings, right? That we're created b'tselem Elohim, in God's image, everyone on this earth. Our responsibility for one another is a major theme of the book of Jonah. God's compassionate care for all living things, major theme of the book of Jonah. The power of tshuva, of repentance, of course. That's one of the main reasons it's chosen. It's a most successful report of repentance probably ever recorded in the Bible, as we're going to see. The power of teshuvah, repentance, and the human capacity for change. So with those themes in mind, we are honored to have Cantor in just a moment chant the Hebrew of each chapter, and then as we go through it chapter by chapter to read the English, we are honored to call upon Seth Chasanoff and Laura Goldsmith to read chapter 1, Emily Bergman to lead chapter 2, Pat Smith leading chapter 3, and Joyce Moskowitz reading chapter 4. We begin, of course, with blessings for Haftarah. Our blessing before, we're honored to call upon Ruth Jacobson, beginning on page 342 for the Haftarah, and then Martha Sensel, the blessing after. So we begin on page 342, and then we turn to page 344 to begin reading the book of Jonah. So Ruth would be so honored to have you lead us.
All right. Can you hear me? Okay.
Yes.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar b'nvi'im tovim v'ratzah v'divrehem haneh emarim be'emet. Baruch atah Adonai habocher b'torah uv'Moshe avdo uv'Yisrael amo uvin v'e ha'emet v'tzedek.
Amen. Thank you, Ruth. Thank you. And now we turn to page 344.
Vayehi devar Adonai El Yonah Amitai Lemor Kum Lech El Ninveh Ha'ir Hagdola Ukra Aleha Ki Alta Ra'atam Lefanai.
And the word of Adonai came to Jonah, son of Amittai. Get up, go to the great city of Nineveh, and proclaim against it, for their evil deeds have risen before me. But Jonah got up and fled to Tarshish, away from the presence of Adonai. And he went down to Jaffa and found there a ship heading for Tarshish. And he paid its fare and went down into it, to head with them to Tarshish, away from the presence of Adonai. But Adonai hurled a great wind upon the sea, a storm so great that the ship was in danger of being shattered to pieces. And the sailors were frightened, cried out, each to his own God, and they flung the ship's cargo into the sea to lighten their load. But Jonah had gone into the hold, the lower deck of the vessel, and he lay down and fell into a deep sleep. And the captain approached him and said to him, "What are you doing sound asleep? Get up, call your God. Perhaps the God will be kind to us and we will not perish." And they said, each man to his companion, "Let us cast lots that we may know on whose account this evil has come to us." So they cast lots, and the lot fell on Jonah. And they said to him, "Tell us, you have brought this evil upon us. What is your trade, and where do you come from? What is your country, and who are your people?"
And he said to them, "I am a Hebrew. I revere Adonai, the God of heaven, who made sea and dry land." And the men felt great fear, And they asked him, "What have you done?" Because the men knew he was fleeing from Adonai, for he had told them. And they asked him, "What should we do to you to bring calm to the sea around us?" For the sea was growing more and more stormy. So he said to them, "Lift me up and hurl me into the sea, and the sea will calm down for you. For I know this great storm came upon you because of me." And the crew rowed hard to return to dry land, but they could not do it, for the sea was raging more and more fiercely around them. And they cried out to Adonai, saying, "Please, Adonai, do not let us perish because of the life of this man, and do not hold us guilty of shedding innocent blood. For you, Adonai, that which you desired have brought about." And they lifted Jonah and hurled him into the sea. Then the sea stopped raging. The men revered Adonai, great was their reverence. So they offered to Adonai a sacrifice and made vows.
Vayman Adonai dag gadol livloa et Yonah. Vayehi Yonah bim'ei hadag shalosha yamim u'shlosha leilot. Vayitpalel Yonah el Adonai Elohav mim'ei hadaga.
And Adonai provided a great fish to swallow Jonah. And Jonah was in the belly of the fish 3 days and 3 nights. Jonah prayed to Adonai his God from the belly of the fish, and he said, "I called to Adonai in my distress, and God answered me. I cried out from the belly of the netherworld, and you heard my voice. Into the depths you cast me, into the heart of the sea, and the floods engulfed me. All your billowing, breaking waves swept over me. And I thought to myself, I was banished from before your eyes. Will I ever again gaze upon your holy temple? The waters closed in over me. The deep engulfed me. Rushes wrapped around my head. I descended to the low point of the mountains. The gates of the earth closed upon me forever. Yet you, Adonai my God, raised up my life from the pit. When my life fainted away, I called Adonai to mind, and my prayer came to you, to your holy temple. They who cling to empty folly forsake their own welfare, but I, with a shout of thanksgiving, I will sacrifice to you. What I have vowed, I will fulfill. Rescue comes from Adonai. Adonai commanded the fish, and it spewed Jonah out upon dry land.
Vayehi devar Adonai el Yonah shenig lemor kum lech al ninvei ha'ir hagdola ukra eleha et hakriya asher anochi dover elecha.
And the word of Adonai came to Jonah a second time. "Get up, go to the great city of Nineveh, and call out to it the proclamation that I tell you." So Jonah got up and went to Nineveh according to the word of Adonai. Now Nineveh was a great city of God, 3 days' journey across. And Jonah started out and made his way into the city, the distance of 1 day walk. And he called out, 40 more days, and Nineveh shall be overturned. The people of Nineveh trusted in God, and they proclaimed a fast, and they put on sackcloth from the richest to the poorest. And word reached the king of Nineveh, and he got up from his throne, took off his robe, put on sackcloth, and sat in ashes. And he cried out and said in Nineveh, by decree of the king and his nobles, no person or beast of flock or herd shall taste anything. They shall not graze, and they shall not drink water. They shall be covered with sackcloth, person and beast, and shall cry loudly to God. Let all turn back from their evil ways and from the violence which is in their hands. Who knows? God may turn and relent Turn back from the heat of anger so that we do not perish. God saw what they did, how they were turning back from their evil ways, and God relented from the evil plan for them and did not carry it out.
Vayera Elyona ra'a gdola, vayichar lo, vayitpalel el Adonai, vayomar, Ana Adonai, halazet devari, ad hayoti al admati, al kain kidamti livroach, tarshisha, ki yadati, ki ata el chanun verachum, erech apayim verav chesed, venicham al hara'ah.
But to Jonah, this was a great evil, and it made him angry. So he prayed to Adonai, saying, "Please, Adonai, is this not what I said when I was still in my own country? This is why I fled to Tarshish to begin with. For I knew that you are a gracious and compassionate God, endlessly patient and abounding in steadfast love, ready to repent of evil. And now, Adonai, please take my life from me, for it is better for me to die than to live." And Adonai said, "Is it better for you to be angry?" Then Jonah left the city, found a place east of the city, made himself a shelter there, and sat under it in the shade until he might see what would become of the city. And Adonai Elohim provided a gourd and made it rise up over Jonah to give shade for his head and rescue him from his evil situation. And Jonah rejoiced with great joy because of the gourd. But at dawn the next day, God provided a worm that attacked the gourd and it withered. And as the sun rose, God provided an oppressive wind from the east, and the sun beat down on Jonah's head, making him faint. He begged for death, saying, "It is better for me to die than to live." Then God said to Jonah, "Are you good and angry about the gourd?" And he said, "I am good and angry to the point of death." Then Adonai said, "You pitied the gourd, which you neither worked for nor grew, which appeared overnight and perished overnight. Should I then not have compassion for the great city of Nineveh, a place of more than 120,000 human beings, unable to tell their right hand from their left, and many beasts?"
Thank you, Joyce. Thank you, everybody. And now turning to page 351 for the blessing after, we're honored to call upon Martha Sensel.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, sur kol haolamim, tzaddik b'kol hadorot, ha'el ha'ne'eman, ha'omer ve'oseh, hamdaber umkayem, shekol devarav emet v'tzedek, al ha'torah ve'al ha'avodah ve'al ha'nevi'im ve'al yom ha'kippurim hazeh, Shanatata lanu Adonai Eloheinu limchila v'lislicha ulechapara lekavod ultifaret al hakol Adonai Eloheinu anachnu modim lach umvarchim otak yitbarach shimcha v'fi kol chai tamid leolam ba'ed udavarka emet v'kayam la'ad Baruch atah Adonai, melech mochel v'soleach, la'avonotenu ve'la'avanot amo beit Yisrael, uma'avir ashmotenu b'chol shana v'shana, melech al kol ha'aretz, mekadesh Yisrael v'yom ha'kippurim.
Amen.
Amen. Yashar Kochech. Thank you, Martha. And again, thanks to everybody for reading and leading us in the blessings for the Haftarah. So now, as we do in our afternoon service, we're all going to participate. And the way that we're going to do this, similar to last year, if you joined us, in just a moment, we're going to go into breakout rooms. And we'd like for everybody to think about, if you are in a breakout room, if one person in that room would volunteer to sort of manage the discussion. And what's involved with managing the discussion is to make sure that everyone has a turn to share in the breakout room who would like to share. Some people may not want to share, so we don't want to pressure anybody if they just want to sort of receive and listen. But if everybody would like to share, to sort of get a sense as the breakout room discussion leader, just making sure everybody has a turn who wants a turn. If you can also, if you are the leader of the breakout room, please keep an eye on the clock. And there's going to be a clock at the top of the Zoom screen, so you'll know we're going to be in breakout rooms and discussion for 10 minutes. And then we'll come back together. Now, what is our discussion? What are we going to be talking about? Well, this is such an amazing story, so powerful, raises questions as well as offering answers. We'd like for you to think about, for discussion, have you ever felt like Jonah? Have you ever felt like Jonah in this story? And another thing to think about, if another question for discussion is, what about this story resonates with you? What about this story resonates with you? So with those two questions for discussion in mind, have you ever felt like Jonah? Or what about this story resonates with you? We're going to go into our breakout rooms for 10 minutes. So again, if you'll designate in your breakout room who will be the person to lead the discussion. Cantor's going to be in one breakout room, so she'll be leading that one. I'll be in another, I'll be leading that one. And again, we leave it for you, if Cantor and I are not in that room, to designate somebody to keep an eye on the clock, make sure everybody has a chance to share who wants to. And we're wishing you a very thoughtful and meaningful and engaging discussion. Welcome back, everybody. We hope you had engaging conversations and discussions. We've got a couple of minutes. Would anybody like to share an insight, something that you learned in your discussion, something that you might think might benefit us all? Yeah, Jim. Jim, if you'll unmute, and maybe, I don't know if we need to, if you have a way to unmute, or if we have to find a way to unmute you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
I apologize. I found that one of the last comments had to do with conversation with God. Jonah didn't actually have a conversation with God. He argued with God. It reminded me of Jacob wrestling the angel, and that whole idea of vying with God, and that God didn't rebuke Jacob for it, and he didn't rebuke Jonah for it. He said, "Oh, gee, that really made you mad, didn't it?" You know, he didn't say, "How dare you?" You know, it was an interesting idea that Jonah could argue with God, and God didn't say, "How dare you argue with me?"
Nice. That is such a great insight. And I really think this is very unique. I'm sure there are other religious traditions where you've got prophets or people who are arguing with God, and God doesn't send a lightning bolt to zap them, and how dare you speak to me that way. That's not how God is portrayed in Judaism. There are moments where God's anger is, you feel it, and there's bad things happen to people who are not behaving properly. Definitely there is that in the Torah, but as much as that there is in the Torah, there are people arguing with God and God listening, and God in some ways being changed in the process, right? We began our afternoon service with God is ever evolving. Yeah, Sherry, yeah. I'm becoming who I am becoming. I will be how I will be. In Judaism, we can argue with God. We can argue not for just being belligerent, but for a higher value Now, we could say, did Jonah have a higher value here? There's something that Jonah was arguing for, although it wasn't stated. There is something a good point that Jonah has. But let's continue the conversation. Yeah, Ruth, is something that you learned in
our group thought that I don't know how many felt like Jonah, but that how it related was that we've been asked to do things that we didn't want to do. And how many times haven't we all experienced that when some boss or somebody told us we have to do something, our parent, whoever, and we didn't want to do it.
Yes, very natural. It's a very natural thing to sort of, yeah, that's a great point. We've all been there. Thank you, Ruth. Yeah, Joyce.
I'm not going to get called.
Just that what Ruth said, the fact that the COVID mandate from Biden, everybody on this screen could have a totally different opinion, could support it or not, but people are being told what to do, and it's going against so many different grains across the United States, from religious to political to personal. People don't want to be told what to do a lot of times if they've spent their lives making their own decisions. That's all. I support it. That's all. Yes,
right. We value our freedom. And that's something, Judaism in many ways has given the world, the story of freedom and liberation, and that speak truth to power and to feel a sense of personal liberation. And are there limits? Are there things that supersede and transcend our freedoms? And that's just a question I'll leave for us to answer. Yeah, Pat, I see your hand, and let's see. I'm just looking on my second page, and Anne's got her hand. So Pat, please, if you'll share, and then Anne.
Well, our group, George in our group came up with the point that this is really a story about Jonah, which I thought was really, of course, but it's God is teaching Jonah something, which I thought was so interesting. And so what is God teaching Jonah? That God is teaching Jonah compassion. We talked briefly about how everybody has given things that they don't want to do. And a lot of times it does involve being compassionate towards others. But specifically in Jonah's case, it's like, you need to be compassionate. If you can't even look at you crying over a gourd, for all you home gardeners out there. Can't you you can care about a gourd, but you can't care about a city of all these people. And I just thought that was such a great insight. I loved that insight. So.
Yeah. It's a very interesting analogy, a way for God to teach Jonah the importance of compassion and forgiveness. And I just want to share something, a background that I think is so essential that we were talking in our group. One of the reasons that Jonah did not want to go to Nineveh, perhaps the main reason, and it may have been he was afraid that they were going to throw him in jail or they were going to turn on him. He didn't know what their character was. Nineveh was in ancient Assyria, and those were Israel's arch enemies at the time. And Nineveh, the capital of Assyria, was the capital of Assyria. They destroyed the northern tribes of Israel. They destroyed the kingdom of Israel. And we talk about the 10 lost tribes, that was courtesy of Nineveh. So that God asked Jonah to go to the heart of the capital of Israel's greatest enemy that had destroyed, vanquished the northern kingdom of Israel, created the 10 lost tribes. That was a big ask. And as God showed, the compassion extends, the forgiveness extends, even to your greatest enemy. Yeah, let's see. So Heather and
I don't know if you see that there's virtual hand raises from Rick and from Seth too.
Oh yes. So here's the thing, guys. We want to conclude in about 3 minutes. So can I ask everybody who put their hand up, do you think you could each do it in a minute? Okay,
Yes.
great. Heather, why don't you begin?
Okay, quickly. There was comments about the feeling like a fish out of water, and maybe that connects up with what you were saying about being in Nineveh, which is the enemy territory, and also that his decision endangers others. Jonah's decision really endangers others by his not following God's guidance, or not guidance, but orders. And we also, I felt very much like Joyce said, if we don't follow the orders that we're given, we might endanger others.
Good points. Thank you, Heather. Good insights. Yeah, Rick.
Well, you answered our first question, which was, why was Jonah mad? But I think I understand now. You just explained that. The other question is, why did God choose Jonah? We didn't understand that.
Why did God choose Jonah? The most successful prophet in history. Most prophets, nobody listened to him. Jonah said 5 words in Hebrew, 5 words, and the whole country repented. That is success. So who knows? I guess he had a powerful presence, but
maybe he himself had to learn that lesson too.
So this was for Jonah as well, to learn the lesson, to then share with his country folk, with the people of Israel. Yeah, great stuff. Seth.
Well, you had actually said something about Anne.
I'm sorry.
Before you called
forgot.
everyone else. So
Forgive me. We're on 2 screens and I can't see him. So Anne, thank you, Seth. So Anne, would you? Oh, Anne, can you unmute there? Are you able to?
Mute there. Okay, sorry. We talked about the analogy of being in the whale's stomach is like being in a box, and how all of us can experience being in a box, being boxed in by something in your life. And that was one relationship. But I had another sidebar, but we don't have time for that. So.
Okay, well, thank you for sharing that very powerful image. You're right. Yeah, it's a powerful image of being enclosed, boxed in, nowhere to go. Yeah, Seth. Thank you, Seth.
Again, when reading this, I keep on thinking that Jonah is what we now call a drama queen. This is terrible. I want to die. Oh, look, here they are, this big city. They're not going to listen to me. I want to die. Okay, I've delivered the message. I'm going to sit on the hill and watch the show. And it's so hot out here. I want to die. And oh, look, a gourd grew, and then the gourd died, and the gourd died, and I'm going to be out here in the hot sun again, and I want to die.
He's definitely very dramatic. You're right, Seth. And by the way, maybe that drama is what makes this story so powerful and so beloved, that we can relate to the story, we can relate to the emotions, we can relate to his anger, his frustration, God's forgiveness, what the city the whole country just quickly, all right, we're going to change. Everything is just so dramatic and powerful. And maybe that really brings the message home to us. So that's a great point. And I saw too in the chat box, Ruth was relating Jacobson to this idea of being boxed in and closed in the belly of the great fish, Mitzrayim, right? Like Egypt. Mitzrayim means a narrow place, being restricted in a narrow place. Such a difficult place to be.
We actually made a comparison. We talked about the Exodus story in my breakout room too, about making comparisons to Moses and the fact that he didn't merit to enter the Holy Land. So we were kind of drawing a comparison there.
Wow. Well, it sounds like y'all had such great discussions. Thank you for sharing that with us today. And hopefully, when we come to the story of Jonah next year, all of these insights in our discussion will make the story all the more powerful and inspiring to us. Let's turn to page 509 now, page 509, as we conclude our afternoon service. we're in the middle of page 509. I know we're jumping a lot, so I'll give you a chance to find your place there. When we get there, Cantor and I are going to pray responsively, and I invite you to join Cantor in the responsive reading of the second indented, I guess it's not indented. So let's pray responsibly, middle page 509. In each human hand and heart is the power to renew life.
To see dignity where there is brokenness and defeat, to know and cherish the image of God in every human face.
To open eyes that have closed in despair, to shelter the weak and shield the helpless.
To give strength to the weary, hope and comfort to those who feel pain.
To care for the earth like an old friend, to give to its oceans and rivers and forests our selfless love, to treat ponds and tide pools, the sky and the mountains as sacred living beings. Together,
in each of us is the power to renew life.
Each of us is the power to renew life. Yes, yes. Another message of the book of Jonah.
And in keeping with the theme of the hand in each of us, the hand, and gonna do a song called Beyado, which is it comes from the last stanza of Adon Olam, that we are in God's hands, and in a way that's kind of what this day is somewhat about. The fact that we're uncertain of what lies ahead in the year to come, but we spend this day preparing for that and hoping that it all comes to good. So if you know this, feel free to join me. Beyado. Beyado of Kiruchi, Be'eti Shan Be'ayira, Be'imruchi Gefiati, Adonai li v'lo ira, Be'imruchi Gefiati, Adonai li v'lo ira. My soul I give to you, my spirit in your care. Draw me near, I shall not fear. Hold me in your hand. Draw me near, I shall not fear. Safely in your hand. Beyado of Kiruchi, Be'eti Shan Be'ayira, Be'imruchi Geviati, Adonai li v'lo ira, Ve'imruchi geviati, Adonai li v'lo ira.
Thank you, Cantor. Thank you all for being here and participating in our afternoon service. We're going to take a 5-minute break. We invite you to join us for Yizkor, our memorial prayers, in just 5 minutes. And then after Yizkor at 5, we'll have Ne'ilah directly after that. Thank you all again so much.